it breaks our heart to watch the destruction of your nation, and it is being destroyed from within. And Biden plays a huge part in that. No, I don't believe he's the real president. I don't even think that, regardless of what he's doing, the things that you mentioned, Sean, it's not even him. I think Obama's behind it.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report. Hey, thanks a million for tuning in. I really do appreciate it very much. That was my friend, truth journalist Maria Zeee. I think you're really going to enjoy this powerful, info-packed interview. Before we start, just a quick word about our sponsor. You know, it's almost 2023, and if there's anything 2022 taught us, it's that inflation is here. Things are far more expensive now than they were at the beginning of the year. And we all love holidays, but they're not that great if you can't afford them, are they? But it's not too late to protect yourself. And despite the fact that there's always a risk of loss, and past performance is not indicative of future results, thousands of people have retired comfortably with the help of Noble Gold Investments and their precious metal IRAs. If you're one of the people, like me, who believe gold and silver is an excellent hedge against inflation and total collapse, now's the time to act. Talk to an expert member of Noble Gold's team today. And if you get in before the end of this month, you'll get an incredible free 3-ounce Silver American Virtue coin with every qualified IRA of $20,000 or more. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold Investments. So call the team now at 877-646-5347 to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's absolutely fantastic to have you all here, and you're in for a treat. I have on from Australia, Maria Zeee, the one and only zeemedia.com. That's with 3 E's, and boy, is she a truth teller down under. Maria, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sean. It is so wonderful to be here with you.
Well, it's a pleasure, and let me just start by saying, you know, as well as I know, and the audience knows, there is a full court press against humanity right now. The Marxist New World Order is going for broke, but they're losing badly in countries where people still have a heartbeat. And I'll quantify some of that in a second. But how you doing down under? Is your government more evil than ours? I think maybe it is, and ours is beyond the pale evil. Our corrupt federal government is beyond the pale evil.
Well, Sean, earlier in the year in our federal elections, the so-called elected, I call them selected people that were put into government, I said, watch the immediate climate catastrophe that's going to follow and the conditioning for smart cities and climate lockdowns. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't that long after. Actually, it was the week of the Queen's alleged death that our Premier in New South Wales announced that New South Wales would be the leader of smart cities in Australia, which I knew quite some time ago. My audience did, but you know, it's really interesting because this so-called climate emergency that is happening here and is being used against the people here. I'm not sure if the rest of the world is experiencing the kind of weather warfare that we are, Sean. We're in the middle of summer. We've come into summer and we're having 14 degrees Celsius days with downpour, flooding, destroying rural areas in order to turn them into smart cities. So I think we're quite a way ahead of other Western countries in that regard. So how are we doing? Well, we're doing well. You know, we don't ever let the tyrants ruin our day or rule our mind. But the reality is that Australia really is suffering.
Well, I know all about the weather weapons and the geoengineering and smart cities too. You know, I've had Deborah Tavares on in the past, and she was really breaking ground in that space, explaining to all of us that when you go to your own state or city and search for smart cities, this is all Rockefeller, Rothschild, New World Order stuff. I mean, this is all about United Nations Agenda 2030. They don't want to lift everyone up, meaning the third world, to make everybody prosperous. They want to drag down the Western world. They want us to live like serfs. Thereby, we're all equal. That's what the smart city plan is. Not only is it devious, it's purely anti-human, Maria.
Yes. Yes, it is. Absolutely. It is essentially turning everything into a little ghetto. You might have seen movies like, you know, I think it's In Time, where, you know, people have this, you know, countdown built into them, and they can't they have to pay to travel between districts, or for example, the Hunger Games, where the people in the capital are just laughing at the peasants in the districts, but they literally have districts where they're allocated and not allowed to leave. I was just looking at something that's being proposed in the Oxfordshire City Council, Sean, in the UK. They're essentially, this is climate lockdowns. They're not, I mean, this is what they're going to be, and it's going to be used as a reason to not leave your district because you're damaging the climate. They're actually looking at fining people who leave their districts. We're talking about geofencing. We're talking about locking people into these digital prisons, and once you're there, they want you poor, they want you unable to prosper, as you said. They want you malnutritioned, and people are going to be so depressed, I think, living in these ghettos, which is what they're creating, that they'll be stuck in the metaverse and living this false life because the one in front of them is so horrible. And if people would just listen, Sean, if the masses would just listen to what we're warning about, we wouldn't have to go there. But they're not listening. They think that we're heading for progression, for the next stage in human evolution. It's the biggest nonsense I've ever heard in my life.
I put that report up, the news item there from Gateway Pundit about Oxfordshire, England, restriction on residents' travel for the planet. It's always to save the planet, Maria. And so I put that up because that's on my list of things to cover with you. But here's where I wanted to start, and I mentioned it at the beginning. The New World Order is really getting its butt handed to it in nations, in countries where people have a heartbeat. Now, I'm sure you saw this, but the Peruvian Marxist president tried to disband Congress, and they turned around and impeached him and arrested him following his attempted coup. So I think that's very, very good news. It shows the power of the people, as does this. The Brazilian military is in firefights with Marxist, leftist commandos and guerrillas that do not want Bolsonaro to be president, even though that is the will of the people. And we can see the same thing here in our nation. By the way, the Argentina Communist VP, Cristina Kirchner, she's been sentenced to 6 years in prison. Now, she's not the current VP, but again, I think this speaks volumes to the power of the people and to an honest government. By the way, I interviewed G. Edward Griffin back in the day, and he laughed at me when I said, well, if we had an honest government, then fiat currency would be fine. And he literally laughed out loud, Marie, and he said, Sean, that's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as an honest government. And boy, that's really, 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 really becoming true as it pertains to your nation and mine. Any comment on anything so far here?
Well, I really love that you say any nation's left with a heartbeat. You see, the problem and the reason why people in the West are not fighting back as they should, or we're not seeing the results that we should, or the people that are fighting back are just hitting a brick wall, is because so many others are complacent. If we had people that had the heart, if we had people in the courts that had the heart, let me just give you an example, Sean. We had a case here where, from our very own government data, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, we had evidence that children were dying from the COVID-19 injections. This was taken to a judge, and she deliberated and dismissed the case on a technicality. In any normal society, if a judge was presented with that evidence, there would be an immediate injunction on the injections, regardless of the technicalities. Children are dying. There's a risk here for children's lives. Let's suspend, and we'll worry about the technicalities separately. And so these people, first of all, are they compromised? Second of all, do they even have a heartbeat anymore? Do they have any life in them, or are they just drones? And are they becoming drones even further because of all of the substances that have been injected in them? What is this doing to the human brain? What has it done to the spiritual part, the conscience of a human being? What has it done to their heart? And I don't mean the physical heart. I'm not talking about myocarditis. That's on the rise, of course. I'm talking about the actual heart of the human. There are very few people left in the world, Sean, whose love has not grown cold. And this is the reason why these pockets that you're reporting, it's fantastic. But in the West, we're missing that heart. We're missing that fighting spirit. Because for years we've been dumbed down. For years we've been conditioned to trust the system, the very system that has been built to destroy us. And unfortunately, I put the problem down to a couple of things here, Sean. It's people love the world too much. They love the world more than they love God. And the other reason is that they don't love the truth.
That's very insightful. And I just got off the phone literally a half hour ago with Scott Shera, who lost his daughter Grace to the hospital protocols. And he had some heavy stuff on his heart he wanted to share with me. And I just assured him to keep doing what he's doing because God is using him as the vessel for truth. God is using him as God wants to use him as a soldier for truth. So, I just wanted him to understand that, yes, there is a Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. And yes, there is some infighting. And yes, there are some charlatans in the truth space, just as there are in society everywhere. But I'm just buoyed by the fact that people are speaking out and speaking up and standing up against this thing. Let me cite another example. And I said this to Scott. As we're having this conversation, it was yesterday, December 7th. It's all on the congressional record now. The bioweapon, masquerading as a vaccine, was completely exposed by top experts on Capitol Hill yesterday, thanks to Senator Ron Johnson. So I guess my question as I come back to you, my friend, is how much longer can these evil demon rats, and yes, the rhinos too, how much longer can these people who are bought and sold by George Soros, quite literally, Katie Hobbs, the next governor of Arizona, how much longer are they going to get away with standing by this narrative, which is anti-human and it's quite literally democide?
I'm going to give you an honest answer, Sean, because I believe in honesty. I think that the destabilization of government is on purpose. In fact, I know it. That's part of what the move towards the one world government, one leader, people calling for one leader is. They have to hate their own government and distrust their own government in order to eventually be comfortable with the idea of a one world leader. This is why they're ramping up the World Health Organization's treaty. We want one health approach. They're calling everything one health, one, one love, one this, one that. This is what it's gearing up to. So I actually think that a lot of what we're seeing, people are fighting to expose the corruption in government, but what the deep state or what the globalists are going to do is eventually expose the corruption in government anyway, because they want you to hate your leaders. If you look at Australia, for example, and you look at our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, who was in Hawaii sipping pina coladas while our country was on fire a few years ago, you would remember the bushfires in Australia that were absolutely catastrophic. That's where it started, with demoralizing Australians. We haven't had a proper Christmas since, really. And then, during the pandemic, people are dying. Plandemic. People are dying. People are dying from the injections. People are protesting all over the place. And he's sitting there playing a ukulele on social media. People absolutely despised him. And it's with a reason. They want you to despise your leaders. So while I think there are two things happening concurrently, Sean, if the masses don't realize that this psyop is going on in order to condition them for the one world leader, they're not going to actually join in properly on holding the current leaders accountable, and then installing or voting in good leaders. They'll miss that crucial part that is required, because the globalists will propose a one world solution before we get there. So if the masses don't catch up right now, this is where we're heading, and the destabilization of government is a huge part of the agenda.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I also think it's a humiliation ritual. I mean, for us to
Yes.
have to suffer a puppet like Biden and a vice president like Kamala Harris. I mean, I know you don't live in this country, but Kamala Harris was the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the candidates running for president. Like when she threw her name in the hat, zero support. Nobody likes that woman. So, of course, she now gets to be vice president, one heartbeat away, and it's a fragile heartbeat, I would say, from becoming the president. It's all part of a demoralization campaign. I mean,
Yes.
look no further than what's going on in Arizona. Here, we'll get to that in a second because there are some good things happening. By the way, what happened in Florida in the midterms was an honest election, because Florida is about the only state that shored everything up and got rid of all the fraud. And DeSantis is seeking, he says, to hold COVID vaccine makers accountable for misleading, I would say lying to the public about the vaccine safety. It's not a vaccine. According to Michael Yeadon, the former Pfizer insider, it's a bioweapon. So good
Yes.
things are happening, but here's the problem. You tell me, Maria, how much longer can the people stand for this? We can't afford 4 more years of a Soros-backed governor heading up Arizona, where she's going to open the borders and allow child trafficking and fentanyl to pour in. So breaking, again, Gateway Pundit doing such a great job over there, Jim Hoft, Arizona media PR company finds impossible variant in election day data. 25% of GOP voters magically flipped their votes on top GOP candidates. So that's why you saw the candidate for the mining inspector get 400,000 more votes than Kari Lake. So, Maria, again, why aren't the people marching in the streets in this country like they're doing in Brazil? Because we can't afford 4 more years of this.
I agree with you. And can I just say, Kari Lake, I admire that she is pushing. I admire that she's still out there saying, no, we're not going to rest until we uncover this. And I really hope she doesn't give up. And she doesn't strike me as someone who will. Gateway Pundit do some fantastic work. That I love their reporting, and kudos to them for sharing this news. But your question about why the people aren't demanding more is, again, I believe it has to do with the demoralization of society. I just posted something this morning about the fact that a top EU court ruled that Google must begin to delete people and information off the internet that they deem to be inaccurate, right? So anything that the officials say, you're effectively deleted from the internet. This isn't just, blocking you on social media. This is deleting you from history. And a top EU court has just ruled this. And when I posted it, someone responded in my Telegram channel and said, it doesn't even matter anymore. And that really broke my heart, Sean, because that means that the war that they're waging on you, if you feel like it doesn't even matter anymore, then you've already lost. We can win. We can resist this. Our courage is what will bring others along the way. But when people see the masses just not caring and going about their daily lives and planning their next holiday while children are dying from a bioweapon, and they're complacent and they think that everything's fine and they're dyeing their hair purple and calling themselves a hedgehog, it is demoralizing. And when your government comes on and it's not our government, it is the government that's been installed, comes on the television every single day talking about how, we have to support children to transition their genders, which isn't even scientifically possible, rather than the important issues. You see Joe Biden being confronted about the border and he says, we have more important things to worry about. What important things, Joe Biden? Karine Jean-Pierre is an absolute clown who just is there to deflect and is literally only there because she's Black and because she's a lesbian, because it's a diversity installation, which is ridiculous. I was speaking to a senator here this week and he was talking about these diversity quotas. And I said, I'm a woman. I could care less how many women are represented in parliament. I just want people with integrity. I don't care. I don't want more women. I want more integrity, So when people watch this and they see that it is a clown show, it is very demoralizing. You tell me, Sean, you live with this information in your head 24 hours a day. You have more of this information in your head than most. And of course, it is difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But as someone who knows just how bad it is and is exposed to it all the time, all day, every day, for me, the reaction to that is I must fight even harder. But what's happening is I'm seeing out there that people are losing the will to keep fighting when things like this go wrong. We've got this amazing news from the Gateway Pundit. What should be happening is that people should be getting behind that and getting behind Kari Lake and going out there and helping and raising awareness and walking on the streets during their free time, talking to people, handing out information, printing out articles. We should be seeing this level of activism, but it just doesn't happen. And people have grown despondent and they're losing hope because at the beginning we saw, maybe we'll have Nuremberg trials. Maybe, Fauci's being grilled, and nothing happens, Sean. There's no accountability for these criminals. And so, of course, people have lost some will to fight. But I would argue that you should be doing the exact opposite. The more injustice that you see, the harder we should go.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And I guess that is what is a little hurtful to the spirit on a daily basis, is that we're not seeing more success. So, for instance, the puppet in chief who's currently sitting in the White House, he had no support when he was running. Okay. And that's a lot like Katie Hobbs in Arizona. By the way, she didn't campaign much. She refused to debate Kari Lake. Really, the same's true with Biden. The guy was a dead man walking and he
Yeah.
gets elected or selected. And it's just very, very demoralizing. And I'll give you another example here, too. And it's what I mentioned to Scott Shera. We'll quote the Bible here in a second about this. But Rhino members of Michigan Board of Canvassers mock citizens over their legal request for a recount of the 2022 selection. So let me just scroll down. We'll play a quick clip from this guy. A rhino through and through, Tony Daunt, chair the Republican Board of State Canvassers. This is what this man has to say.
I personally think this is a gigantic waste of time. I think it is poisonous to our system. I'm sick of having this argument. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting for the rhino. How about if you're disenfranchised as a voter and these people won't even allow a legal recount? He's troubled by that. This is what I said to Scott Shera, because he said, people in his church say, Scott, just accept it. Your daughter died in the hospital. That's very bad. It's very sad. We're sorry for you, but just move on. This is not what God wants you to do. And what's he doing? He's fighting. He's explaining to the world that these hospital protocols killed his daughter by design. In fact, he and I have discussed this. I believe she was murdered. So does he. And the facts back it up. She goes into the hospital, a girl with Down syndrome. They vent her. They put her on remdesivir and all sorts of other drugs that literally kill her. They go against the family's wishes by ordering a DNR, do not resuscitate, when the family absolutely never wanted that. And they killed his daughter. And I said to him, regarding these lukewarm Christians, this is what Jesus says about these people, like that rhino we just saw too. Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 to 23. We'll jump to verse 22. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. That's what we're up against, Maria. These rhinos, people like Katie Hobbs, that's a Democrat, of course, but the rhinos, people like... I've just had it. You see what I'm saying here? Jesus knows what's in people's hearts, and I just don't understand how people can be so lawless, because without law, we got nothing. We don't have a country, and the courts aren't going to remedy any of this because the courts are largely hijacked and lawless.
I have a couple of comments about this person that you've just shown, mocking citizens and, saying I'm so tired of this. And really, Sean, people have asked me many times, how are you so positive and strong through all of this? And I say, literally, my strength comes from the Lord. I could not do this if I didn't have Jesus in my heart, if I didn't have him in my life. And that brings a resilience that is superhuman. I find that people that are believers and realize the times that we are in are some of the most resilient people that I have found in my life. Not these wishy-washy believers who are telling people to just give up on justice, which is unfortunately your friend's church congregation, it sounds like, are doing. Many of them are probably injected. Maybe I shouldn't make that assumption. I apologize.
No, you're probably right. You're probably right. They definitely worship at the altar of Big Pharma. They buy all the brainwashing. They probably tune in nightly to NBC Nightly News, the CIA version of news with Lester Holt. Yeah. And so these are supposed to be the Christians that should be standing with their brother, Scott Shera, whose daughter was murdered by the hospital protocols. This is all black and white stuff. Okay, this isn't a leap of faith. This isn't conjecture. They actually murdered his daughter and got paid very well to do so. And the congregation, a lot of these people he knows in the church say, just get over it, Scott, move on.
Yeah, and see, this is the perversion of Christianity that's happened for so long, Sean, that we think that we're supposed to just lay over and take whatever's done to us. It's actually not the case. We are supposed to be warriors of justice on the earth. Our God is just, and he believes in justice. In fact, we're all sitting and waiting for the ultimate time of justice on earth. So why would we not practice that while we have the opportunity to make the world a better place? If we're meant to be reflections and representations of God on earth as his children, and we're not doing the very things that he would do if he was here, fighting for children's lives, fighting for the lives of others, fighting for truth, then we are as good as unsalty salt, good enough to be thrown into a pile of manure. Really? I mean, what does salt do? It's supposed to preserve it's a preserver. If we're not preserving the goodness of the earth, there'll be none left. But unfortunately, we're living in the times that we were warned would happen, where the love of many would grow cold. And, I believe that a lot of believers are in that category now as well. But I would encourage those who know what's going on and who are believers to draw your strength from the Lord, and don't let things like that rhino that Sean just showed. I apologize, I didn't catch his name, but don't let things like that demoralize you, because you have a job while you're here. Those who know the truth carry the greatest responsibility of anyone on earth. And yes, it is difficult, but we should take that responsibility seriously. And I believe that we'll be given the strength and the grace to do it to the best of our ability while we still have time.
Guys, just a quick break here with a word from our sponsor. Well, 2022 has shown us what might be coming in the future, and it's more inflation and possibly a very, very bad recession. It's time to take action, and despite the fact that any investment can lose money and past performance is no indication of future results, a precious metals IRA using tax-advantaged gold and silver to keep inflation at bay might just be what you need to give yourself protection from financial nightmares. And you'll get a stunning free 3-ounce Silver American Virtue coin when you open up a qualifying IRA account this month. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold Investments. So call 877-646-5347 to find out more, or just visit noblegoldinvestments.com. The link is directly below. Let me show you one other thing here, Maria, because it's
Sure.
deeply disturbing. The people that are aligned against humanity, these Democrats, they've chosen the side of evil. And I don't know if there's a better example of that than this New World Order Jezebel. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser refuses to allow January 6th political prisoners any visitation, not even computer visitation, after nearly 2 years sitting in a DC gulag.
Sick.
The person that you see before you there, this woman right here, this African-American woman that we're all supposed to worship because she's a woman and she's a person of color, she's a demon. She obviously is in the pocket of Soros. And look, if you cannot stand up for just the basic human rights, certainly you're not going to stand up for the rule of law. So these people have chosen sides, and I'm shocked to see this happening in our own country. And I got to tell you, I've not done a very good job screaming from the rooftops about this. These poor men and women rotting in DC gulags without trial for 2 years, when you've got Soros-backed DAs around the country letting rapists and child pedophiles out without trial. I mean, this is insanity. This is literally Satanism. Look, it's a fallen world, Maria, as you know, but we can't stop fighting.
I agree with you. I don't know if you're familiar with this story, Sean, but it's related in a way that I think people will understand once I tell you. In New Zealand, there's a baby at the moment.
Yeah.
His name is Baby Will, and his parents he needs surgery for his heart. It's not an immediate surgery that's required. It is required, but he's stable and in good health. So it's not like his parents requesting uninjected blood is going to be detrimental to his life right now. They've spoken to multiple cardiologists around the world. The cardiologists have said, no, he's stable. He's got more time for you to battle this out with the establishment. And the baby's now been taken off the parents. All they asked for was uninjected blood. They had over 100 volunteers with Baby Will's blood type come forward and offer their blood who were uninjected. And all the hospital had to do was take the blood of the uninjected. Over 100 options. But no, they said that that would undermine public confidence in the blood bank, and as a result, the mother was not allowed to leave the medical facility, essentially held hostage there because she couldn't take her child with her, followed by security guards, followed by police. And in the middle of the night, they came and they took her baby to force this operation and force injected blood on the baby without the parents' consent. The reason I'm telling you this story and how it's related is that they want to make an example out of anyone who dare stand up for what is right. And this is exactly what's happened with the January 6th protesters. They will go to the most extreme lengths to make an example out of anyone who stands for the truth. Baby Will is literally, I think, one of the heroes of our age, because he doesn't even know it, but he is as a baby standing up to the establishment. How many more of us are going to need blood transfusions in the future? I mean, I'm all for not trusting in big pharma and not trusting in the establishment. Sean, I thought I had a broken foot and I said I'm not going to the doctor. Like I won't do it. I will avoid it like the plague as much as possible. But at the end of the day, there will be people who are, unfortunately in a car accident or some sort of emergency and they need a blood transfusion. And this has now set a precedent that we won't be able to request clean blood. And they will go to the greatest lengths to snatching a baby from its mother's arms to prove a point that you can't stand up. And what happens is when there's this isolated case of this, then the people become fearful. What will they do to me? But if there was a million of us, like we saw in China, they're now pulling back the restrictions because the country erupted and they said, we're not going to do this anymore. You can't keep us locked up like animals over a sniffle for a year. No, we're not doing this anymore. And so finally the government is pulling back their restrictions because the people finally had enough. So until we get to that point where we say enough is enough, people, we are not animals. We are human beings created in the image of God, and you cannot treat us as though we are subhuman. Even animals get better treatment than this. It's truly, until more people get outraged enough about this, Sean, they will keep doing it to us and they will keep making an example out of us. And the problem is that people will continue to get more and more demoralized. So we really are in a race right now against time where people must realize ASAP what is going on. Otherwise, they will win. They will win. I want people to understand this. If enough people don't realize, like we saw in China, saying this enough is enough, the New World Order will defeat us. And then we will be peasants being pushed to eat bugs, being pushed into these smart cities. And then there'll be some of us maybe that are on the run in the bush, trading in leather boots and batteries. I mean, we're talking about Book of Eli stuff right now. So we must, for anyone who feels tired, you can't allow that feeling of despondency to overcome you. We have to keep going, Sean. It is really life or death.
Well, it is 100%. And I feel like we're very near the tipping point. I mean, I really felt like the tipping point had been hit in this country, but then they stole the midterms again. But yes. Look, the story about Baby Will is very, very important because we will live under the exact amount of tyranny we're willing to put up with. They will keep pushing, and if we don't fight, we lose without a fight. See, I think that's what you're saying is like, who wants to live on their knees? I don't know. I mean, good slaves, I guess. But the thing you said about the blood supply is so important. Well, we can't let Baby Will have clean blood because doing so would undermine the confidence in the blood supply. Well, isn't that funny? That's a lot like our elections in that rhino in Michigan. Well, we can't allow a recount because a recount might undermine the confidence in our selections. So yes. We're going to live under the exact amount of tyranny we're willing to put up with, Maria.
Yes. And, you see parents that have pushed back against this insane agenda where their children are being exposed to sexualized material in school. And, they've tried to come after these parents. I just saw a story yesterday, Sean. I was watching Fox News, actually. I was watching Tucker Carlson. Regardless of what people think, I think it's great that he raises some important issues on a platform where millions are watching. So, think what you will. But I was watching this story of a woman who, she's a mum. She's a regular mum, and she posted a very moderate opinion on a mum's group on Facebook saying, I really don't want my children to be exposed to, it was some sort of trans book, right? I really don't think that this is appropriate for my young children to be exposed to. The military, the United States military, harassed this woman for her post. We're not talking about Facebook shutting down your opinion and blocking your account. We're not talking about the police turning up at your door, which has happened for a post that's offended someone. We're talking about the military turning against their own citizens for posting an opinion online. And she, of course, got very scared. Her grandfather's a veteran. And she has the utmost respect for the military, but she said, I can't believe the military is coming after me for an opinion and a very moderate post online. And then I think it was a chief of police, forgive me if I've got this detail wrong, from that area contacted the group administrator of that Facebook group and told them to remove the post. We're talking about the authorities now at the point where they are turning on their own people because not enough parents stood up. Now, your complacency has allowed the military to start harassing mothers for not wanting pedophilia. Are we really at this point, Sean?
Yeah, we are.
And
it's upside down world.
Yeah. It is the complacency of people that's gotten us here. It infuriates me.
Yeah, it infuriates me too, because these people are now acting like stormtroopers and they're reporting to Darth Vader. Look, that's not hyperbole. So this New World Order Jezebel, the mayor of Washington, D.C., she will not stand for the human rights of her prisoners sitting there in that D.C. gulag. Why? Because she reports directly to Darth Vader. This guy, George Soros, funding 253 leftist groups to influence global media and push the anti-American agenda on the masses. Like, I can't think of a more evil-looking guy, maybe Klaus Schwab, close second. But this guy, and by the way, I'm not supposed to reveal this to folks because evidently he's a Jew. That makes me an anti-Semite, to call him out for his anti-American behavior. By the way, he's been kicked out of his own home country. I think there's an arrest warrant for him in Russia. So this is what we're up against. This demon creature named George Soros and all of the demon creatures like Muriel in D.C. and the DAs around the country that are left, that aren't prosecuting criminals, and they're turning these cities into hellholes. People like, who's the mayor there? Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, who literally, have you ever seen the video? Yeah, have you ever seen the video of her pledging her allegiance to a new world order, to the new world order? Have you seen that?
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I'll splice it in here.
And you pick the people to run those agencies and the deputies that are pledging allegiance to the new world order and good governance. And then I think you have the inspector general do some spot audits to make sure that there is real compliance.
You brought up something because it's a hot topic right now, whether you're allowed to criticize a Jewish person or not. Man, Sean, I love all people. I don't care what your race, religion is. I have love in my heart because I know Jesus, right? So it's not wrong to criticize someone just because they're a certain racial group or a certain religion. That doesn't come into it. I'm criticizing the character of that person, not criticizing Soros because he's Jewish. I'm criticizing Soros because of his character, because he's a genocidal maniac, which is nothing to do with anything other than the fact that he's a genocidal maniac, And so this political correctness that we've been accustomed to because of the corporate nature of the New World Order takeover, come through the corporations. If anyone hasn't worked in corporate before, I have. You've got to be super careful about what you say, and you can't do this, can't do that. Political correctness, which I always struggled with and always got in trouble with for Sean when I was working in corporate, despite having been in multiple senior roles. Couldn't keep my mouth shut. But it is the reason I'm talking about this is because I know that a lot of the influence of the New World Order and the next parts of the agenda are going to come through the corporates, the ESGs, the reducing your carbon footprint, all of this sort of stuff. We've been conditioned for this for some time. And these people generally are people that love the world. Or if you don't love the world, you'll become complacent within these corporations because everyone around you does. It's very hard to stay the light in those places. And I'm not saying there aren't people that are in there that aren't, but it is hard because you do end up getting influenced, and that becomes your world. You're there for 8 hours a day, then you go home and you've got this world mentality in your head. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is there needs to be some sort of an effort to reach those people. I know that not everyone is going to respond to me screaming my lungs out, which I often do because I'm so outraged. Not everyone who's not awake is going to respond well to that. Some people will, some people won't. So there needs to be an effort from others to reach that corporate drone world, and not just give up on these people. That we need to have some sort of strategy to reach those types. So, I've been calling for a long time for people to do more. If people that are watching this broadcast have a gift in doing that, please think of a way to reach those people, because again, time is catching up with us. And if we don't have more people that join in, well, we're screwed. I'm just being honest, Sean.
No, you're right. And you and I have a lot in common because I worked at Target Corporation for 10 years, and I was producing and directing and executive producing and creative directing for that company. And it was about the best 10 years of my life. I really, really loved it. We did interesting things, but I couldn't keep my mouth shut either. And as I look back at that, I guess I should have gone to work for My Pillow. I should have been working for Mike Lindell. Then I could have spoke my mind in the workplace without getting myself in trouble with human resources. Hey, I want to do one more thing, couple more things here before we
Sure.
wrap this up.
Yeah.
I've never interviewed Derek Johnson. He's a musician. My understanding is he used to be in the military. I've never spoken with David Rodriguez. So Nino's Corner, Derek Johnson just appeared on this, and he's saying that there is stuff happening. There are white hats. The military will move. There will be tribunals in 2023. I want to just play a portion of this exchange and then just get your opinion on it, because I don't know either of these men personally. Like, now I know you. This is the first time we've spoken, but I followed you for a long time. What do you make of what's being said here?
That's correct.
Midterm. So
Correct.
So yeah, so I've heard. So do you think that was a column that was put out in the New York Times, or what, to say that the tribunals will be happening mid 2023? Because I know they just finished the courthouse there in Gitmo, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the other things jointly, simultaneously showing that Biden is not president. He said that he was going to shut down Gitmo in the 2020 campaign. He said he campaigned on that, and that's what I tell people. Think about that. Here's a president campaigning. Here's someone campaigning on Gitmo. Most people don't even know what Gitmo is, or Guantanamo Bay. He said he was going to shut it down, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. He had a speech. I say he always his quotations, because he ain't real. He had a speech in February and September this past year that said he was going to shut down Guantanamo. Look, ladies and gentlemen, if Biden is president, he would have the same powers as every other president. He could shut down Guantanamo Bay just like that, because he's the executive branch. Why hasn't he done it? Why is it still operating? Why did they complete all these new courtrooms and all this new space, as President Trump said, will hold tens of thousands of prisoners, not thousands, tens of thousands of prisoners.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. I'm going to come back to Maria. Look, I started this with good news happening around the world where people have a heartbeat. The Peruvian Marxist president was impeached and arrested following his attempted coup of Congress. So these things can happen. What do you make? Is this just more hopium, or is there something to this in your view?
My view is that I am wildly opposed to hopium, not because I'm against hope, but because I'm against false hope. But in saying that, I'll always give consideration to these types of things and think, okay, well, if this happens, that's great. If we see something more substantial about this, maybe the people can get behind what's happening, right? But we've been hearing rumors of things happening behind the scenes for a long time. I think part of that is actually to make people it's a psyop to make people sit around and just wait and trust the plan, and I might upset some people by saying that, but this is my opinion. I'm entitled to it. I think that when we hear things like that, okay, store it on the shelf. Think to yourself, maybe if I see something more substantial, I'll get behind it. I'll raise awareness about it. In the meantime, you need to keep fighting peacefully, lawfully.
Never stop fighting. Never sit back, grab your popcorn, and enjoy the show. That was my big beef with the Q thing. And I reported on a lot of those Q drops, and there was valuable information in them, in many of them. But I never once said, grab your popcorn, enjoy the show. This isn't a movie, okay? We shouldn't be passive spectators. We should be participants in our lives, because this is the fight of our lives. And I guess the other thing I bump on when I hear people say, well, Biden's not actually president. I get that from a technical standpoint. He's not. There was a coup. He was implanted. But, he really did shut down the Keystone XL pipeline on day one. He really is allowing the borders to be open. He really is trying to sell us out to the World Economic Forum in the United Nations with Agenda 2030. He really is doing these things. So I'm not sure how people can say, well, he's not actually a president, because he's actually damaging this nation. He's killing the republic, Maria.
I know he is. And I America, the United States is very close to my heart. Number one, because I work with a lot of people in the United States. But number two, because I know it's the leader of the Western world. And I know that the huge part of the agenda is to destabilize and destroy the United States. They don't want it to be the greatest superpower in the world anymore. In fact, I think they're angling for China to be, which is terrifying. But, when I see what's happening with the freest nation in the world, the most patriotic nation in the world, and I see some of the footage of the crime rates, and just it's astounding to me that they are destroying the United States in this way. And I always say that they're the last bastion of freedom, because you still have the First Amendment. You still have the Second Amendment. These are things that our laws here in Australia, first of all, we don't have guns. I mean, we have guns. Some people have guns, but it's not everyone that's carrying them. So a lot of people cannot defend themselves with firearms. And secondly, our free speech laws are nowhere near as, free as the United States. So when we look at the United States, we see it as really the last hope that the Western world has. So it breaks our heart to watch the destruction of your nation, and it is being destroyed from within. And Biden plays a huge part in that. No, I don't believe he's the real president. I don't even think that, regardless of what he's doing, the things that you mentioned, Sean, it's not even him. I think Obama's behind it, probably. Yeah. But the reality is he's there. He's doing this. Do we need to go back to 2020 and prove that the election was stolen? Yeah, I do. I think we do. I think that is such a crucial thing, because since that point, elections around the world have been stolen. Just look at France. Macron was reselected and the country erupted in protest. Brazil, Lula selected, the country in protest for over 30 days now, I think. There have been multiple instances of stolen elections. I believe it happened here too in Australia, following the 2020 elections. That was the catalyst for the rest of the world just accepting, because if they could steal it from the United States, they can steal it from anyone. And their whole goal is to have these AI elections, AI deciding for us, because it knows what we feel and think, and it's going to determine who we want elected. This is, Yuval has spoken about this openly. So this is a process of, desensitizing people to the fact that you're not going to get the results that you want in an election. So you might as well give up. This rhino saying, I'm just exhausted by this. Well, you're exhausted by it because you're probably in on the plan of Yuval Noah Harari and the globalists making sure that AI decides for us. And sorry, we're not going to allow for you to be exhausted by it. You need to do your job and you need to investigate this election, because I'm telling you, if the American people let go of 2020, and I think a lot have, if they let go of 2020, the rest of the elections forever are just screwed. That's the truth.
Well, that is the truth. And that's what we learned from these midterms, is that, and boy, you got people like that actor Michael Rappaport, laughing about it, mocking us because he knows they stole it. He says, that's what we do. If you ain't stealing, you ain't in the game. I mean, essentially mocking us, swearing, cursing, because he's just thrilled that he's one of them. He's thrilled that he's on that team, and he believes foolishly that his team won, when that's Team New World Order. I mean, if we don't have a constitution, if we don't have a republic for the people and by the people, then we got nothing. We're slaves. And that fool, Michael Rappaport, he thinks that's a good thing because he thinks he's on the winning team. So these people are completely delusional, if not fully sold out to evil. One last screen share, because the 17th letter of the alphabet did say, if America falls, the world falls. So this is really important. And yes, I mentioned this in the last interview. And yes, there were some people in the comments that want to poo-poo this as though they know more than Maria Zeee or me, or they have better sources than Maria Zeee or me. I don't know how people can poo-poo this and dismiss it out of hand when it was filed in the Supreme Court of the United States on October 20th, 2022. Okay, Supreme Court of the United States. Brunson versus Adams. Let's scroll down, because it's one thing to have a conversation over Zoom with my friend Maria Zeee and to name the names. It's a whole nother thing to put this together and file it in the U.S. Supreme Court and name the names. This action is against 388 federal officers in their official capacities, including Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, and former VP Pence. All the respondents have taken the required oath to support and defend the Constitution of the USA against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And as such, they're liable for consequences when they violate that oath. This goes on to claim that they have violated that oath because on January 6, 2021, the day of the insurrection, the 117th Congress held a proceeding and debate in Washington, D.C. This proceeding was for the purpose of counting votes under the 2020 presidential election for President and Vice President of the USA. During this proceeding, over 100 members of U.S. Congress claimed factual evidence that said the election was rigged. The refusal of the respondents to investigate this congressional claim is an act of treason and fraud by the respondents. So this is the key. If we let that go, then we've already given up, we've already lost the fight, and we'll die on our knees, Maria. We'll see what happens with this. My understanding is January 26th is when the U.S. Supreme Court will grapple with this. And I pray to God they do. And I pray to God, literally, I pray to God that they do the right thing. We need divine intervention to save this republic, because it would not be that hard to arrest all these people, as the Peruvians just did, with that nutcase Marxist president who attempted a coup of Congress.
Well, I have a bit of a word for the people that, you know, poo-poo things. You know, this is the nature of media, Sean. You know, there's a lot of opinions. Sometimes what you intend to convey is perceived differently by others, and that's fine. I'm all for diversity in thinking and speech, because that's what a free world is. But you know, or free will is, I should say. But truly, when you see things like that, you know, again, have some reservations. Don't put all your trust and faith in that. You know, I wouldn't put my trust and faith in anything in the world regardless. But, you know, instead of just, you know, if you look at that and say, oh, well, these people, they're wasting their time. Well, what are you doing? You're literally wasting your time to critique people that are going out of their way to actually do something. You've just wasted your time being a keyboard warrior behind your screen. What kind of a use of your time is that? Rather than just thinking, okay, good on them, you know, may people support them. I'll pray for these people. We're such a critical people. We're such a, you know, and have we, I want people to really ask themselves, have we been black-pilled to the point where we don't have any hope at all anymore? I mean, I'm all for preparing yourself for the worst, Sean, and I think we should be. I'm a prepper. I have long-term food storage. I have other, you know, alternative sources of energy, water supply. I do all of that because I think there's no limit to how insane these people are. But at the same time, I'm gonna back the people that are actually trying to do something. Do you know how much time it takes to put a case like that together? And we're just going to say, oh, you know, well, why even bother? Oh, why even bother writing that comment then? Just go get into your basement and don't ever talk to anyone again and be miserable for the rest of your life. You know, we have to have some joy and we need to have some hope through all of this. Otherwise, our fight will be destroyed. And just know that every single time that you have the thought that, oh, what's the point? They're winning. Every single time you think, why do we even bother anymore? They're winning. Don't let them. Don't let them rule your mind. I know those thoughts come. They come for all of us, but we have to be stronger mentally and emotionally, and our bodies and our soul and our spirit. We have to be stronger than these people, Sean.
Couldn't agree more. And I'd say one last thing before we part ways. You know, the comments section in BitChute is where a lot of these trolls seem to flourish. I see a much healthier comment section over on Rumble. I don't know why that is, but I think a lot of these people that are negative in the comments repeatedly, I think they might be paid to be there. I mean, I really do, because they don't serve any great purpose, and they really serve to divide us. And then their wish, I think, is to conquer us. So as we say our goodbyes, we'll do a screen share here and pay it forward. Maria's site, zeemedia.com. That's 3 E's, actually 4 if you count the one in media. zeemedia.com. You do a great job. I've seen you hosting InfoWars too.
Yes, I host InfoWars, the Alex Jones show, the 4th hour, every single Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central. And so you can catch me live on there. Sometimes I bring guests on, sometimes I take callers. And I also, you know, every week on zeemedia.com, I also contribute to other networks. So you can, if you want to find all of my content in one place, it's on zeemedia.com. That's the best place. And of course, Telegram, an amazing channel with some really great, intelligent people in there, and I'm grateful for them. That's also Zeee Media. That's where you can find me.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time today, and let's stay in touch. I'd love to get you back on again, because you guys really are living in Australia the real life Hunger Games. I mean, you're about to. They're literally going to split your country up into districts with numbers and turn you all into really a movie like the Hunger Games. I mean, that's their goal, if you allow it.
Yes, that's what's coming if the people don't wake up, Sean. So we're going to keep screaming from the rooftops until they realize. I thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all of your work. I think you do a fantastic job, Sean. And I really think that a big key to understanding the New World Order is faith, faith in the Bible, and I think that's where a lot of your wisdom comes from. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm glad to finally meet you. You're great. You do a good job, and I appreciate your time today. Our guest has been Maria Zeee, zeemedia.com. I'll leave the link below. And again, friends, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. A special thank you to our subscribe stars and those who have taken the time to sign up at sgtreport.tv, where we present this content ad-free and beyond the reach of Big Brother with our own private server there. Thank you so much for your support and for real news every single day for free. Visit us directly at my two websites, thephaser.com, where you can stun them with truth. Those are hand-selected videos I choose every single day for you. And sgtreport.com. That's the antidote to corporate propaganda and all of those mockingbird mainstream media CIA lies. God bless you and yours, friends. Bye-bye.
Look at all the rhinos and traitors that have been revealed. I think that was important. You realize that, until one of the votes, everybody still thought Romney was a conservative. Slowly, I think the deep state is losing ammunition where they're having to call out their second team, which are the people that are embedded in our government, in intelligence agencies and everywhere else in business. And, hey, we're in the time of revelation. All of this is being revealed.